September of 2012, we left our home port of Seattle on a trip around the world in our Nordhavn 52 Dirona. We reached the mouth of the River Mersey late in the afternoon of October 30th, 2017, following an easy 150-mile overnight run from Belfast. Our destination was Liverpool, about 15 miles upriver. The windmills of the 90-megawatt Burbobank wind farm were prominent in the distance as we approached. The Port of Liverpool once was the main terminus for transatlantic traffic between the UK and North America. This dwindled in the 20th century with the introduction of containerization, but has since improved with the construction of a new port in the 1960s that currently handles about a quarter of all container traffic between the UK and USA. The 5 huge red Megamax cranes visible on the left dwarf the adjacent cranes and are part of a recent deepwater shipping port project that will increase the capacity of ships that can be handled from those carrying 3,500 containers to 13,500. With a tidal range of 33 feet or 10 meters on spring tides, the River Mersey has the second highest tidal range in Britain after the River Severn. The Mersey River banks dry at low tide, so most of the commercial docks are behind locks. In 1715, the world's first enclosed commercial dock was built in Liverpool, and additional docks and locks were constructed over the subsequent centuries. Even the new port was built behind a lock, which had the largest gates in the world when completed in 1971. As we approached, Mersey vessel traffic was announcing the ship's movement, listing the name and time that each ship would pass through a given lock. The original docks and locks are too small for most commercial shipping vessels, and now are used mainly for pleasure craft and smaller commercial boats. Our destination, Liverpool Marina, is in an old commercial basin accessed through Brunswick Lock. With our draft, the earliest we could enter the lock is with 22 feet of tide, which unfortunately was well after dark at 5:45 p.m. Not the ideal time to be approaching an unfamiliar area and entering a lock, but we didn't have much choice unless we waited until the next morning. The weather would have been worse for the crossing from Belfast if we did that, so we opted for a night entry instead. With so many lights ashore, Brunswick Lock wasn't very obvious until we were quite close, but fortunately the lock itself was well lit and wasn't difficult to enter at night. Another boat had entered the lock shortly before we arrived, so we needed to stand off for about 15 minutes while they locked through. While we waited, our cat Spitfire made a quick pass across the bow to make sure all was in order. For him, if it smells okay, it's in order. We had a further challenge here in that we couldn't communicate with the lockkeeper by radio. They only monitor VHF channel 37, which wasn't available on any of the several radios we carry and is only supported on some radios sold into the UK market. We tried contacting them on VHF 16, 13, and 12, the Mersey River vessel traffic frequency, without success. Fortunately, the skipper of a commercial vessel contacted us and offered to relay to the dockkeeper on our behalf. Once we arrived, they told the lockkeeper we were ready to enter. When the lock was available for us, the keeper opened the gates and gave us 3 green lights to proceed. The Brunswick Lock gate is 8 meters wide, so we can easily fit our 5-meter beam through with 1.5 meters or 5 feet to spare on each side. But it sure looked tight as we approached. The brightness of our video image increases temporarily as we pass beneath the high-powered lights over the lock entrance. This is a view on the port side as we pass through. 5 feet doesn't look like very much. Brunswick Dock was built between 1827 and 1832, originally with two lock entrances. The dock was closed in 1975, but one lock was reopened in 1987 for small watercraft. And this is the view along the starboard side as we pass through the gate. We don't have a lot of space this side either. Unlike all other locks we've passed through, the Brunswick Lock itself is much wider than the entrance gates. Likely when the dock was reopened in 1987, smaller gates were installed to replace the original full-width ones. Another unusual feature is that the lock has a floating dock with standard cleats, just visible on the right, so we don't need to tend dock lines attached to a fixed point as the water level changes. The Brunswick lock keepers move boats through efficiently. The inner gates opened while the lock water level was still several feet below that of the inner dock, and water poured in. Downtown Liverpool is visible in the distance across Brunswick Dock as we exit the lock. The view from the port side as we exit the lock. And the view from the starboard side as we exit the lock. The hard part is over. We just have to find our berth and settle in for the night. Brunswick Dock is quite beautiful at night, with the shoreside lights reflecting into the still water. Here Jennifer is swapping the lighter weight 50-foot lines we use for passing through locks with our 1-inch 25-foot mooring lines. Once we're against the dock, Jennifer attaches a stern line ashore. With the boat secure on lines from the stern and amidships, James can leave the helm to pass Jennifer the bow line to attach to a cleat. The boat is secure and the engine is off. Time to relax. You can read more about our trip around the world at mvdirona.com, including an interactive map showing our track with a live update of our current location.